I never thought my life could collapse in just 1 week, but it did. Imagine this: one moment you're a respected project manager with a steady income, a wife waiting at home, and a future that seems secure. The next moment, you're sitting in a sterile HR office, being told you've been terminated for breach of data security. I didn't even know what they were talking about. They claimed the company's biggest client had lost sensitive files, and the trail led straight back to my login credentials. I walked out of that building with a cardboard box and a 1,000-yard stare. My phone buzzed non-stop with pity texts from co-workers who didn't know the whole story, and I couldn't even bear to look at them. All I could think about was Megan, my wife. She'd always been supportive, or at least that's what I believed. I was sure she'd hug me and say, "We'll get through this together." But when I unlocked the door that night, silence filled the apartment. No comforting words, no warm embrace. Just a lingering coldness. I placed the box down and collapsed onto the couch, trying to piece together how my career had just gone up in flames. Then my phone chimed again, but this time, it wasn't a co-worker. It was a ring alert from our doorbell camera. While I was being interrogated in HR earlier, someone had been at our front door. I tapped the video. At first, all I could make out was the shadow of a man leaning close, punching in the code to our keypad. And then, just before the feed cut, I saw a familiar watch glinting in the frame. My stomach dropped. That wasn't a stranger. It was someone I knew. Subscribe and tell me in the comments what you would do if you were in my shoes. The next morning, I went back to HR with the little energy I had left. I begged them to double-check the access logs. I knew I hadn't leaked anything. I didn't even have those files. But they just looked at me like I was some desperate liar. My boss, Ryan Hale, stood there with his arms crossed, shaking his head like I had personally betrayed him. "Alex," he said, "you were one of my best guys, but you crossed a line. You need to accept responsibility." The thing was, Ryan was supposed to be my mentor. He helped me land the promotion last year. And now, he was the one making sure I got the blame. I tried to defend myself, but it was like the decision had already been made before I even walked in. They handed me severance papers and escorted me out. By the time I got home, Megan was already dressed to go out. She didn't ask about my meeting. She didn't even ask how I was holding up. Instead, she gave me this practiced, emotionless speech about how things have been stressful lately and how maybe this job wasn't right for you anyway. The way she said it made my skin crawl. It was like she'd rehearsed the lines in advance. That night, I tried to eat dinner alone at the kitchen counter, but my appetite was gone. I glanced at the trash can and noticed a receipt sticking out from the top. It wasn't mine. I pulled it out, an electronic receipt for a fancy steakhouse dinner for two. The time on the receipt was the exact hour I'd been sitting in HR, fighting for my career. Megan had told me she was at a work event that evening. But she doesn't work at a company that hosts steakhouse dinners. My hands shook as I held the receipt. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking. But then, my phone buzzed again. Another ring alert. The following day, Megan claimed she was heading out to a new yoga class at 6 p.m. She even dressed the part, leggings, loose hoodie, yoga mat slung over her shoulder. But something about the way she avoided eye contact made me uneasy. At exactly 6:12 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Another ring alert. My heart pounded as I opened the app. The feed showed a man standing at our door, typing in the code with ease, like he'd been there before. The camera caught only a partial view of his face, but it was enough to make my blood run cold. I paused the video and zoomed in on his wrist. The watch. The same stainless steel band I'd seen glinting the day before. And I knew exactly whose it was. Ryan Hale. My boss. My so-called mentor. The man who had just ruined my career. I tried to convince myself that maybe there was another explanation. Maybe Megan left something at work, and he was dropping it off. Maybe I was paranoid. But then I noticed something else. When I walked into the bedroom later that night, I picked up Megan's hoodie from the floor. It smelled nothing like her usual perfume. Instead, it carried a faint, sharp cologne, the exact brand Ryan wore every day. I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the hoodie in my hands, feeling like my world was collapsing piece by piece. First my job, and now my marriage? When Megan finally came home, she looked relaxed, even cheerful, like nothing was wrong. She kissed me on the cheek and casually said, "Yoga was great." I wanted to scream, to confront her right then and there, but something inside told me to wait. To gather proof. Because deep down, I already knew this wasn't just stress. This was betrayal. And the next night, She gave me confirmation in the most chilling way possible. The very next evening, I sat at the kitchen table rehearsing in my head how I was going to confront her. I had the ring footage saved, the hoodie still in the laundry basket, and the steakhouse receipt tucked into my pocket. I was ready to lay it all out. But before I could even start, Megan walked in, dropped her bag by the door, and sat across from me with this blank expression. Her tone was calm, almost too calm, like she'd been practicing a script. "Alex," she began, "I think we need to talk. Things have been tense between us. I need some space. You've been under so much stress, and I can't keep living like this." I just stared at her. Space? Tense? I had just lost my job because of something I didn't do, and now my wife, my supposed partner, was telling me she couldn't handle being around me? I opened my mouth to ask her what she really meant, but before I could, her iPad, which she had left charging on the counter, lit up. A message banner popped up on the screen. "Can't wait to see you again, red heart emoji, R." She noticed my eyes flick toward it and instantly grabbed the iPad, pressing the power button like nothing had happened. But she wasn't fast enough. I saw the name. Just the initial. R, and I didn't need the rest. I forced myself to stay silent, though my chest was burning. I knew if I exploded right then, she'd just lie, deny, or spin it back on me. Instead, I nodded slowly, as if I understood, and let her believe I was accepting her words. But in that moment, I made a silent promise: if she was going to betray me and treat me like I was disposable, then I would expose every single secret she was hiding. And as fate would have it, her own carelessness handed me the key to do just that. That night, long after Megan had fallen asleep, I sat in the dark living room staring at her iPad. The thought kept looping in my head: "Can't wait to see you again, red heart emoji, R." I knew what it meant, but I needed undeniable proof. Something she couldn't twist or gaslight me out of. So, I took a chance. I opened the iPad. To my surprise, there was no password, just her lazy swipe code, the same she'd been using for years. And that's when the floodgates opened. Her iMessage threads were right there in front of me. Conversations with Ryan. Pictures, late-night jokes, even voice memos. But what really broke me were the attachments. Files. PDFs and zipped folders labeled things like handoff.zip and client_data. My blood froze. These were the same files I was accused of leaking, the very reason I'd lost my job. She hadn't just betrayed our marriage, she had been part of framing me. Scrolling further, I saw messages like, "Don't worry, he'll take the fall. And once this is done, we'll finally be free to travel without sneaking around." It felt like a punch straight to the chest. They hadn't just been having an affair. They'd been orchestrating a plan to destroy me, professionally and personally. And Megan, the woman who vowed to stand by me for better or worse, was in on it. I slammed the iPad shut, fighting the urge to wake her and confront her right then. But a voice inside me screamed, "Don't. Not yet." If I wanted justice, I had to be smart. If I wanted to clear my name, I needed more than anger, I needed evidence. And as if the universe wanted to help me, the very next day, someone unexpected slipped me a piece of information that changed everything. The next morning, I dragged myself out of bed early, determined to think clearly. My plan was simple: act normal, gather as much proof as I could, and wait for the right moment to strike. But when I got back from a quick trip to the store, my heart sank. The apartment door was wide open. At first, I thought maybe I'd been robbed. But then I noticed something that made my stomach twist even harder. Several of my boxes were stacked neatly in the hallway. My stuff. Clothes, books, even my old record player. Megan stood inside, arms crossed, while another man, no surprise, Ryan, helped carry out more of my things. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded, my voice shaking. Megan barely looked at me. "Alex, I told you. I need space. I can't do this anymore. Ryan was kind enough to help me pack up your things. You can stay at Jenna's for a while. It's better this way." The audacity nearly made me laugh. Not only was she kicking me out of my own home, but she had the nerve to let him, the man who framed me, the man she was cheating with, handle my belongings like he owned them. I clenched my fists, but forced myself to stay calm. Losing my temper would only make me look crazy. So instead, I stepped aside and let them finish. But I didn't leave empty-handed. Later that evening, I reviewed the ring footage. Sure enough, it had captured the whole scene: Megan and Ryan carrying my things out together, laughing like they were already a couple starting a new life. And just before Ryan shut the door, The camera caught him pulling something from his pocket, a spare key. My spare key. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't just betrayal, it was a full-on setup. They weren't hiding anymore. They wanted me gone. But if they thought I'd just roll over and disappear, they had no idea who they were dealing with. That night, I found myself parked in an empty lot on the edge of town, staring up at the ceiling of my car. My entire life, career, marriage, home, had been stripped away in a matter of days. The passenger seat was piled with clothes stuffed hastily into trash bags. My cardboard box from HR sat in the back, mocking me. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Megan's face, cold, detached, as she told me I needed space. I saw Ryan's smug grin as he carried my things out of my own apartment. My chest tightened with a mixture of rage and despair. Around midnight, my sister Jenna called. She must have heard through the grapevine, because she showed up half an hour later with coffee and a blanket. She looked at me like I was broken, and in that moment, I almost was. "You're not staying out here," she said. But I insisted. I needed time to think. To plan. If I ran to her couch, it would feel like I'd already lost. I remember whispering into the darkness, was I not enough? Was I that blind? Did I deserve this somehow? The self-doubt was eating me alive. But underneath it, a spark of anger kept burning. The next day, I showered at a gym, shaved in the mirror, and forced myself to look human again. Because I wasn't going to let them destroy me completely. That's when I checked Megan's shared calendar, something she'd forgotten to revoke my access to. And there it was. Promotion dinner, Ryan plus Megan, 7 p.m. The same week I was thrown out like garbage, they were out celebrating together. That was the moment the spark turned into fire. If they thought I was finished, they were about to learn I was just getting started. The day after their so-called promotion dinner, I got a call from an unexpected number. It was Luis, one of the IT guys from my old job. We weren't close friends, but we'd always respected each other. He spoke in a low, cautious voice. "Alex, I know what they said about you. But I've been digging through the server logs, and something doesn't add up." I pulled my car over and gripped the phone. "What do you mean?" Luis explained that the access times for the leaked files didn't match my usual login pattern. My credentials had been used on a device I'd never touched before, and the IP address pointed straight back to Ryan's office. The kicker? The timestamps lined up exactly with the nights Megan claimed she was going to yoga. My hands shook on the steering wheel. It was all there, the setup, the manipulation. Ryan and Megan had been covering for each other, using my name as their shield. Luis hesitated before speaking again. "Listen, man, I could get in trouble for telling you this. But you didn't deserve what they did. And you're not crazy, there's proof." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't just paranoid. I wasn't imagining things. There was a trail, and I finally had someone on the inside who believed me. Before we hung up, Luis added one last thing: check Ryan's expense reports. You'll find what you're looking for. That night, I sat in my car with the iPad on my lap, going through Megan's synced emails. Buried in a folder, I found forwarded copies of Ryan's corporate expenses, hotel stays, luxury dinners, weekend conferences that never appeared on the company calendar. Every single one coincided with Megan's mysterious outings. It wasn't just an affair. It was a full-blown conspiracy. And I was done being their scapegoat. From that moment on, I stopped thinking like a heartbroken husband and started thinking like an investigator. If Ryan and Megan wanted to destroy me, I'd make sure they went down with me. Only difference was, I had nothing left to lose. I bought a cheap external hard drive and began compiling everything. First, the ring footage, Ryan punching in the door code, carrying my boxes, laughing with Megan like they owned the place. Then the iPad screenshots, messages between them, intimate photos, and those zipped folders of client data. I saved every single one. Next came the corporate logs Luis slipped me. IP addresses, timestamps, even device IDs that matched Ryan's computer, not mine. I highlighted the overlaps with Megan's so-called yoga nights. Then, using the emails synced on her iPad, I collected Ryan's expense reports, 5-star hotels, late-night steak dinners, work trips that magically aligned with Megan's calendar entries. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. What looked like paranoia at first was now a timeline of lies so clear it could hold up in court. Still, I needed one final blow, something undeniable. That's when Jenna, my sister, suggested I talk to a lawyer she knew. The lawyer listened, brows raised, and finally said, You're sitting on dynamite, Alex. But you need the right stage to light the match. If you really want this to stick, make it public. Public. The word echoed in my mind. And as if fate wanted to deliver the opportunity straight into my lap, an email hit my inbox that very night. The company had scheduled a massive all-hands town hall meeting for the following week, one that Ryan was set to host. It was the perfect stage. And I knew exactly how to use it. The morning of the all-hands town hall, I sat in my car outside the office, going through every single receipt and expense report Luis had given me. I had hours of cross-referenced data, hotel stays, dinners, Uber rides, even random purchases like flowers or wine that didn't match any company events. Every single one traced back to the nights Megan claimed she was out with friends or at yoga. It was all there in black and white. The money trail didn't lie. Ryan and Megan weren't just having an affair, they had been living a secret life at my expense, carefully orchestrating my downfall while pretending to be innocent. I printed copies of the most damning receipts, screenshots of iMessages, and a spreadsheet of the corporate logs. I arranged them neatly in a folder, like evidence for a trial. Every detail mattered, the times, the dates, the exact amounts. Every coincidence was now a pattern, and that pattern screamed betrayal. I called Louise and whispered, "This is it. Tomorrow, we expose everything." "Be careful," he said. "You don't want to get yourself in trouble." "I've already lost everything," I replied. "This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about clearing my name." Later that day, I even checked Megan's calendar one last time. The promotion dinner, Ryan plus Megan entry glared back at me. Not only had they celebrated my downfall, but they had done so openly, confident that no one would ever see the truth. Little did they know, the truth was about to go public. And as I drove home that night, I couldn't help but smirk. Tomorrow, everyone would see exactly what I'd discovered. The day of the town hall, I walked into the office like a man who had already lost everything, but inside, I felt an unusual calm. Ryan was bustling around, practicing his speech, unaware that I had all the proof I needed to dismantle him in front of the entire company. Megan was nowhere in sight, probably out shopping or running errands, blissfully unaware of the storm about to hit. I took a seat in the back, laptop in hand, and reviewed my folder one last time. Screenshots, Ring videos, receipts, Slack logs, it was all there, organized to perfection. I had rehearsed my delivery over and over, making sure each piece of evidence landed with maximum impact. The meeting began, and Ryan strutted to the podium, smiling at colleagues like nothing was wrong. That's when I stood up. Every head turned toward me. "Excuse me," I said, voice steady. "I have something that everyone here needs to see." I connected my laptop to the projector. The first slide was the Ring footage, Ryan entering my apartment, carrying boxes with Megan. Gasps rippled through the room. Next, the iPad messages, intimate conversations, receipts, and files that proved the data leak didn't come from me. Every piece of the puzzle fit together perfectly. Ryan's face went pale. He stammered, trying to interrupt, but the room was silent. I continued, showing timelines of expense reports, hotel stays, and Megan's calendar entries. By the time I finished, the entire company had witnessed what I had been forced to endure, the betrayal, the framing, and the affair. Megan walked in just as the last slide appeared. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I smiled faintly and whispered under my breath, "This is what happens when you think someone has nothing left to lose." And in that silence, I realized, I hadn't just cleared my name, I had taken back control of my life. The day after the town hall, the office was buzzing like never before. Ryan had been suspended immediately, and HR launched a full investigation. The whispers followed Megan wherever she went, people who once smiled at her now avoided eye contact, and even her closest friends were suddenly distant. It felt surreal to watch. The couple who had thought they were untouchable were now exposed. Emails circulated between colleagues, screenshots of our town hall presentation going viral inside the company. I received messages from co-workers I barely knew, saying, "We always knew something was off," or "Thank you for standing up for yourself." And then came the most shocking revelation. Claire, Ryan's wife, reached out to me privately. She had been suspicious all along but had no proof. My evidence confirmed her worst fears. She thanked me for uncovering the truth and promised to confront Ryan herself. It was a twist I hadn't anticipated, an ally I hadn't expected. Meanwhile, Megan tried to reach out, but the responses were cold, dismissive, or completely ignored. It was clear she had underestimated the consequences of her actions. She had thought she could manipulate me, frame me, and escape without repercussion. Instead, everything had unraveled. For the first time in weeks, I felt relief. The fear, the uncertainty, the betrayal, they were finally behind me. I realized that while I had lost my job, my home, and my trust in Megan, I had gained something far more valuable, proof that I could survive, adapt, and reclaim my life, even from the ashes of deceit. And as I watched them scramble to save their reputations, I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. They had worn their masks for too long. And now, everyone could see who they really were. After the dust settled at the office, I realized that exposing Ryan and Megan was only the first step. I still had to rebuild my life from scratch. With the support of my sister Jenna and my ally Louise, I decided to start a small consulting business. At first, it was terrifying. No clients, no office, just a laptop and a dream, but I was determined. Louise helped me set up the systems, while Jenna provided moral support and practical advice. Each day was a challenge, sending out cold emails, pitching services, and trying to regain confidence in myself. But slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. A few small clients turned into bigger contracts, and word of mouth started to bring more opportunities. I could feel my self-worth returning, one email, one meeting, one successful project at a time. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on Megan and Ryan from a distance. Megan had tried to apologize publicly, but her words fell flat. She reached out through emails and even social media, claiming she made a mistake and wanted to reconnect. I didn't respond. My focus was on me now, not on people who had destroyed my life. Every day, I reminded myself that this was my redemption arc. I had learned that life could hit hard, but hitting back with intelligence, patience, and integrity mattered more than vengeance. By the end of the month, my small business had its first major client, a corporate contract that gave me both financial stability and confidence. For the first time in weeks, I felt proud of myself. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was rebuilding, stronger than ever, and no betrayal could shake that foundation. Months passed, and life began to feel normal again, well, as normal as it could after everything that had happened. My consulting business was thriving, I had a stable routine, and I was finally learning to trust myself again. The betrayal still stung, but it no longer controlled me. Megan reached out one last time, pleading for a second chance. Her messages were desperate, full of apologies and promises. But I had changed. I realized that love alone wasn't enough to ignore betrayal, manipulation, and deceit. I had learned the hard way that protecting my own boundaries was more important than trying to salvage a relationship that had been built on lies. Ryan had moved on too, or at least, tried to, leaving a trail of rumors and whispered apologies to colleagues, but his reputation had been irreparably damaged. Claire, Ryan's wife, had confronted him, and the fallout was spectacular, though I never got all the details. For me, the victories were quieter but infinitely more meaningful. I had my independence, my dignity, and my self-respect. I could wake up each day knowing that I had survived the worst and come out stronger. And as I finally looked back on the wreckage of the past months, I realized that sometimes, the people who betray you are only temporary. What lasts is the resilience you find inside yourself. Little did I know, the final twist was still waiting, quietly watching from the sidelines. The final twist came quietly. Out of nowhere, I received a message from Claire, Ryan's wife. She had been aware of his lies for months but hadn't known the full extent. She thanked me for exposing the truth and shared details I hadn't even discovered yet, proof of financial manipulation, secret trips, and messages Ryan had tried to hide from everyone. Surprisingly, she became an unexpected ally, guiding me on how to handle legal matters and even giving tips to protect my new business. With her support and Louise's expertise, my consulting firm continued to grow. I signed contracts I never thought possible, and each successful project felt like a victory not only over Ryan and Megan but over the helplessness I had felt months ago. I finally understood the true meaning of resilience, bouncing back stronger, wiser, and with a clearer sense of self-worth. As for Megan, she eventually faded from my life completely. The people she manipulated turned their backs on her, and she was left to face the consequences alone. I realized that forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation, it meant freeing myself from her shadow. Sitting in my new office, watching clients walk in and out, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in months. I had survived betrayal, injustice, and heartbreak, and I had emerged victorious. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, rebuilt stronger than ever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and stay tuned for the next drama. Was I wrong for the way I handled everything? Who do you think was the real villain here?